While everyone's trickling in, I would love to, if you have an opportunity, just so we know where everyone is logging on from. So, where are you tuning in from? What is your company? What about investing do you want to know a bit more information about? Feel free to put that in the chat for us so we can start to review it and make it a little bit more interactive while we wait as well. But we'll consider those questions as well.
Yeah, and if you haven't connected with Mez or myself on LinkedIn, head over there and send a connection. And that way you can speak to us offline after this if you have any questions that we don't get to. You can always connect with us on LinkedIn. So head over there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Fairfax County, Virginia. Fabulous. Lois, I think it is. Maggie, DC. Hi, Maggie. Mez and I are in Australia.
If you can't tell from the accents.
So, yes, if you have a problem with either of our accents, just let us know that you can't understand a word and we'll try and
slow down. Okay. I think, what time is it in Australia? It is midnight for me. I'm in Sydney.
And it's 10 p.m. for me. I'm on the West Coast in Perth.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what you do. You just hustle and stay up late and
I think you get used to it as well.
Oh, it's all for the good of advancing women, right? You do whatever you have to do.
100%. Completely agree. And I think last year I was just reminded that my talk was at 2 a.m. So I feel like this might be a little better than the 2 a.m. last year.
And next year you'll get to maybe 10.
It'll
be a miracle.
Oh, hilarious. We've got a few more people trickling in, I can see now. So we might give everybody, I don't know, one more minute, or should we start already? I'm going to start introing, saying hi to everyone, just to repeat for the few people that have just joined that are extra. If you want to put where you're from, where you're tuning in from, what your business is, and any questions that you have currently about maybe your business and investment and fundraising in the chat, because we will be looking at that periodically as we go through this fireside chat. So welcome everyone. This is the fireside chat. It's Marnie Lefebvre and Mez. My name is Mez. We are running Funding Female Futures, Navigating the Investment Landscape and Bootstrapping Success. And I am absolutely delighted to be here with you today, not just as a speaker, but as a fellow traveler on this entrepreneurial journey. I come to you as both an investor and a founder who has navigated the challenging waters of raising capital. And it's not always the easiest journey. So I am here to share my insights and experiences with you. Our mission today is to empower you with the knowledge and strategies to secure the resources that you need for your startup or business's success. And we will be traversing through this fireside chat, hopefully, various funding pathways and alternative funding pathways, discussing effective bootstrapping strategies, exploring idea validation techniques, and our goal is to equip you with a robust understanding of the funding landscape and the tools to navigate it successfully. It does feel like a very bold task for 45 minutes, but we're going to endeavor to actually do this. We're going to try. So like I mentioned at the beginning, we want this to be a sort of interactive session that is as tailored to the audience as possible. And I know that a lot of people will be watching this in replay, but for those of you who have the opportunity to ask this live, please ask us in questions in the chat. Please tell us about what your current hurdles are, or what your current funding goals are, so that we can interact with it and we can tailor the session to you. But let me take a step back and just start with a bit of a bio about myself. My name is Mez Galiforco. I'm obviously Australian, you can tell from the accent. I am the founder and CEO of The Mad Ones, which is a venture studio and digital lab that supports funded startups, scale-ups, and corporations in creating leading-edge, user-centric innovation products. So our work at The Mad Ones is driven by commitment to innovation and passion for growing businesses. And in June this year, I accidentally but brilliantly, luckily, founded a community called The Assembly, which is a highly vetted alternative to Chief, that supports women climbing the corporate ladder and entrepreneurs with a unique membership that includes PR support, deal flow, and investor connections, which is kind of a gap in the market that we found. And it's something that I wanted, basically. So on a personal note, I am a proud mother of two, passionate advocate for women in the investment landscape. And I have had the privilege of working as a technology entrepreneur and strategist for some of the world's leading companies, including Canva, Snapchat, Amex, and Virgin Airlines. So I've also had several startups in Sydney and New York. I've founded and led 2 startups to successful exits, raised over about 50 million in USD in investment. And my product expertise kind of expands across emerging technologies. And I'm really excited to share my experiences and insights with you today, and to be joined by the brilliant Mani Lefebvre, who will intro herself now.
Hey, fantastic. All right. Hi there, everyone. I'm also from Australia, and I founded a company called Fempire, which has gone on to become the #1 global coaching company for female entrepreneurs. We certify business coaches, female business coaches, and we train them and get them out there helping other women in business to actually learn how to, validate, launch, grow, and scale their businesses so that they make a real difference out there in the world. Now, before that, my working career started with Richard Branson. I then went on to work for large corporates like British Telecom and the like, and then I decided, in my infinite wisdom, to become a stay-at-home mum. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I was miserable. I'm not going to lie. I loved staying home with my kids, but I became very unhappy because I was trying to fit into a box that really wasn't built for me, a box that I was conditioned to believe that I needed to be in to be a good mother. And as a result of that, I ended up having a panic attack on a busy LA freeway with my 2 small children in the back, and it manifested in the way of losing my vision. So luckily, I got my kids to the side of the road, but it was that wake-up call that I needed to do something different. So what I did was I started a business, a marketing and branding business, from my closet. And then I built, because that was the only space I had with a door, from my closet with my kids in front of the Wiggles, and definitely late at night when they're asleep. And I built it into a studio, custom-built studio in the backyard. So I did a hybrid thing, which most mums do when they get to that stage. And then I took it to corporate offices when they got older. Lots of staff grew it, and then it went global. And I've built several businesses by myself with partners, with investors, and then have become an investor myself. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So, ta-da.
No, it's a brilliant journey. And I actually when I was listening to you, I realized that I hadn't asked you in our prior chats how you had funded your businesses. So had you bootstrapped initially?
I bootstrapped and self-funded. Yeah, which honestly, the statistics tell us about 95% of women self-fund, because they don't have the confidence and they don't understand the landscape. And also, which you and I are going to get into, Mez, is it's kind of, unfortunately, it's built to fail us. There's, only 2% of women get VC funding. It was 3% before COVID, and it did a dive to 2%. And when we finally do get in front of investors hire or invest in mirrors, and most investors are men nowadays. And so that lowers the success rate. A lot of women-led businesses are in female-focused industries, which men don't get or understand. So there's another step back. And then research has shown us that women are asked away from questions like how they're going to handle adversity, whereas men are asked what they're going to do with success. So yes, again, we're set up for failure. But please add to that.
No, I mean, you're taking the words out of my brain and saying them. It's statistically, I actually think the most recent research for the last year to date to June, I think 2023, is 1.8%.
Yeah,
so it's actually dropped more. And as far as, pathways, we know that female funded businesses have statistically higher returns than male funded businesses. And despite that, they're consistently not invested in, and there's a bias towards, like Marnie said, there's a bias towards mirrors. But unfortunately, studies have also shown that there is a bias for women against women as well, which is, when you see the process of, maybe we take a step back for a second. So for those of you who don't know the funding process, there's obviously multiple ways to fund your startup. And like we spoke about, there's bootstrapping, there's alternate pathways, which Marnie will speak to. But when you go through the VC process, there's kind of a pathway. There is the sort of pipeline that we see. So as a VC, we'll see pipeline, deal flow, pitches, and then we do DD. So we do due diligence and all of that. When you think of the first end of that, so pipeline and deal flow and pitches, all of them are potential for bias, because pipeline and deal flow is based on a network. And if you are in a network with predominantly male founders, you're likely only going to invest in male founders, right? And we know from studies with pitches that this is also a point where a lot of bias is found. So, there's a infamous study, and I have to find it, I think it's from 2016, where basically they had one startup deck, one of the groups, it was a male voiceover presenting. On the other one, it was a female voice presenting. One had a male picture, one had a female picture. And despite whether it was a male or female judging, they all judged the male voiceover with the male picture as more competent. And so there is this kind of very intricate systemic bias at play that I don't think is something that's as fixable as, let's change the conversation. I think it has to be deeper. We know that when at least one VC female partner is on the board, the chances of investing in a woman doubles, right? So when women are writing the checks, we know that can double, but there's less than 15% of women who are in check writing positions in VC firms. So it's quite deep, that problem. And so to kind of mitigate that, the way that women go about funding is fundamentally different. The way that we have to train people is fundamentally different. And unfortunately, that is the reality. We obviously will be fighting for change, but in the meantime, we also need to get your startup funded. So it does have to be a sort of, okay, the game is a little rigged at the moment. How do we go about being smarter than what is currently happening? And that's where we kind of advise, and you would do the same, Marnie, but this is kind of where we advise women on a different strategy around funding so that it is almost flawless in its data. We make it more data driven. And this leads us to kind of bootstrapping and everything else. But something that would be important, I think, to talk about is we've got that as a VC pathway. What are the alternate pathways? So before we go into bootstrapping, I know you've got alternate funding pathways that you wanted to mention, which I think are really important, because a lot of the women who are watching this might feel really intimidated by VC investment or just going to an investor. So it's important to know that that's not the only way to fund a startup.
No. Okay, so there are other ways to fund a startup, and a lot of the time, first of all, your startup idea just might not have legs for the kind of things that investors are looking for. So you really do need to learn what investors are looking for and what you should be looking for in an investor, which we can cover in a little bit. But the other pathways that you're going to want to look at, which you're probably quite familiar with, self-funding. So I'm not going to go into that. Most women, we've already talked about it, end up self-funding their businesses. But of course, there's always business loans. You can get a business loan, although unfortunately, again, the statistics tell us there that women are less likely to gain a business loan than a man. But there are ways to navigate around that. There's crowdfunding. Now, a lot of people think crowdfunding is for not-for-profits and things like that, but that is not true. If you can crowdfund your product or your idea or your tech, whatever it is, really, really well, and you learn how to do it well, that proves to investors that there is an interest in the market if you can get some backing through crowdfunding. So I highly recommend, if you can't seem to get investors interested, bootstrap your business, prove to them through crowdfunding that there is a demand for what it is that you are selling. The next is you can sell shares in your company. So you can have a look at selling shares. And another one, of course, is friends and family loans. So loans from people that you know, but you need to have a really good structure around that. So nobody gets burnt and it doesn't get awkward. So, treat them all, whether they're self-funded, it should be a loan to yourself. It shouldn't be just you chucking your money in. You should be loaning that to your business and be prepared to pay the business back. Like, treat it as a bank loan from your personal funds. Business loan, not business loans, friends and family loans, the same. Hopefully they're interest low or interest free, which is always amazing if you can get a family member to back you or a friend to back you. So there are other options. I think I've covered most of them. Mez, can you think of?
When you say money, I'm curious, when you say sell shares and like equity selling, do you mean more with angel investors or smaller investors as opposed to VC funds?
Yeah, well, to people that, yes, you can call them angel investors, but if you have enough, if you're networked enough, you could potentially sell shares to people that you know rather than investors. Does that make sense? So
That does.
Yeah, so you might not go to people you don't know. You might sell shares in your company. Again, that's kind of friends and family funding, but you do it through shares in your business.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I think, there's an overwhelm that I get a lot with, a lot of people have an idea for a business, let's say first-time founders, and it's women in this instance. You've got a female founder, brilliant idea. She wants to get this off the ground. And a lot of founders, and I'm sure a lot of people watching can resonate, you're the visionaries of the business, right? So you're focused on the vision of what you're trying to bring to life. And it can be overwhelming to think, oh, I have to get funding and I have no idea how to go about it. What advice would you give to women who might be at the state of, oh, I'm the visionary, but I literally don't know what to do next? Everything Mez and Marnie is still talking about feels overwhelming and it feels too complex. What are the first steps? What is an actionable guide to assess what we would need?
I would say, first of all, validate your business idea. So validation is really important. But the second is let's say you validated, let's get past that. You validated, you have a viable idea. It's really fantastic, but you're looking for an investor. Is that kind of what you're asking, Mel?
Well, I'm trying to get into the mind of people watching, and I'm thinking, the founders that I've worked with, and I'm not sure in the Fempire community if you've come across similar sort of archetypes, in the sense that they might be first-time entrepreneurs, so they've never really pushed a startup off the ground. And there seems to be this kind of default state that everyone goes to where it's, I've got a really brilliant idea, I need to get funding, instead of going, I've got a really brilliant idea, this is how I'm going to go about funding it and growing it, and I feel like there needs to be almost like a step-by-step sort of, I can kind of start this in a way. So if I was starting again, and this is what I advise everyone to do, you have an idea. There is something called an MVP. There's a minimum viable product of your idea that probably doesn't need that much funding, and that is something that is completely testable. And if your default state, and this is something I advise to all founders that I work with, and I worked with a lot of founders, if your default mindset is to say, oh, I'm not getting customers because I need investment to grow this to get the customers, you likely don't have product market fit. Product market fit is its own engine of growth. It's its own catalyst of growth. So that means you won't have traction to even raise investment. So the irony here is to raise investment, you're likely already growing. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of think of this as a step-by-step saying, okay, well, what is the MVP of your product? What's the minimum viable option version of this product that you can do? Honestly, if to the point of, I don't know, a design prototype versus an actual functioning prototype, or like really think about, oh, if you have a full idea of a SaaS software or some sort of business, think about the minimum version that you can do of that. And there are ways to do that. There's ways that can be a bit hacky that you can test, and then start to test that proposition and do everything to really get that traction. And that traction, like Marnie says, even with crowdfunding, that traction is proof of concept. So the more that people buy into that idea, the more that people pledge to sign up or sign up for beta or any of that, that's all evidence that your idea has traction. And that's all things that will likely increase your chances of getting investment.
Exactly. And then once you've got to that point, instead of going straight to, I now need to get investors, start reaching out to investors through LinkedIn, through networks, have a coffee with them. There's nothing worse there's nothing worse than someone emailing me saying, here's my pitch deck, can you take a look at it for me? I'd really like you to fund me. But if someone came to me and said, Marnie, can we have a coffee? I'd really like to pick your brain. I want to get into investing. I'd like, just most investors, unless they're super busy, so respect their time, will take a half-hour meeting with you, whether it be on Zoom or in person, and they will give you their best recommendations for your next steps wherever your business is at. Don't come to them super green. Really have researched what investors want and what you're looking for, and know what you would like from any investor, and then just start asking questions, gain advice, use them as a mentor. And even if they're not prepared to invest in your business, at least you can gain a whole lot of, it's about building a relationship before sticking your hand out, I guess.
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's actually something, I can't remember what it's called in psychology, which is a form of bias where we prefer familiarity. And so what Marnie is saying is you're building a relationship, and someone is, if you've met someone a few times, the likelihood of them saying no to a copy or no to reading a pitch deck is less than if you just randomly cold call or cold email an investor saying, can you read this pitch deck? And so it's just about really making sure that you foster those relationships. And to Marnie's point, it's about building that relationship before you want to raise that investment. So say you know that you want to raise investment, you're going to raise in 11 months, 12 months. You can start building those relationships now, and that makes it a much more authentic relationship with that investor, where it feels like they're not being attacked with you just trying to get some sort of investment. We get something like 33 emails, 35 emails a month about, pitch decks being sent to us and everything. And so it does make a difference if I see the name and it's familiar to me because I've already met you at this time, and there's some sort of contact there. In saying that, it doesn't mean that we literally read each one, and we do try to foster those relationships ourselves, because I think everybody needs this education, especially women, because like Marnie said prior, there is a confidence gap. It's literally called a confidence gap between the genders. And women tend to question themselves a lot more than men. So, both of our works is really trying to change that. But yeah, I think fostering a relationship with the investors for sure, and exploring other funding options. But, the main thing is really working on the business. I see a lot of founders put so much, like I said, so much pressure on getting investment to fuel their startup. And that really shouldn't be the case. It should be a rocket ship that they're joining, rather than I need you to fuel the trajectory and everything, right? I need you to fuel the actual launch. And so if you're not getting that, keep working at the problem to try to find a solution that will do it on its own to a certain degree. That would be my advice.
If anyone has any questions for us, shoot them through now. Don't be shy. Now's your chance. And as I said earlier, if you're watching the replay, you can always shoot questions to us in LinkedIn. If you want any of your questions answered there, we're happy to answer them. But yeah, please shoot any questions through that you have, because this is your chance to get in front of us with your business idea. If you're just starting out, you've got this great idea. Your mum said, cool idea. I have no idea how to run a business yet, or build a business, or grow a business. Then I would say, and there are women that, you know, check in right at the start, then really head out and learn the basic fundamentals. I know it sort of sounds a little bit basic, but it happens all the time, of growing a business and doing and getting it to the stage where Mez is saying it's investor, or you've proven you're a business and it's investor ready, or at least investor candy.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, one of the issues that, and I don't know if other people have come across this, but something that we were speaking about recently was founders usually don't know what they don't know. And that comes from lack of exposure to education and industry. So the more that you throw yourself into networking circles or courses, or just learning, become a sponge at that stage. If you're super beginner, become a sponge and just try to fund your own education into that, because that will kind of mitigate those unknowns. And it will allow you to not only do it yourself, but hire the right people to come in and actually help you.
Yeah, so we probably should head into, in a way, what some of the things that investment investors are looking for in a founder. Do you think, Maz?
Yeah, I mean, investment, for those of you who haven't gone through pitching rounds, I was in Y Combinator. So I did quite I was thrown into my first investment raise into the most drastic scenario ever. Y Combinator, basically you go into your pitching round and it's to 250 of the top investors in the States. We ended up raising from Sequoia and a few other ones. And we raised about 5 million. And what I learned from that time, which I was 25, to now, which I'm not going to say my age, but this bit of time has passed, is that investors in the investment journey is quite intense. People can be very direct. You can work very hard to get one meeting that is about 20 minutes to prove an idea that you have been working on for 6 months, a year, that you believe in, and you can say one wrong thing and not answer the right thing, and that meeting is done, right? So it is a very highly intense environment. But what I have learned is to mitigate with data and to mitigate with the facts. So I depend much less on my pitch than I do showing numbers of sales, numbers of customer acquisition, and anything else partnership wise. So if I think investors, what they're looking for is proof of concept in numerical values, because I think a lot of founders, you will know everything about your industry that you're doing. So say I'm starting, I don't know, I'm starting a shampoo company, right? I know everything about hair, and I know the trends on TikTok, and I know that my shampoo has gone so well on TikTok and it's gone so well everywhere else. I'm going to these investors, and a lot of founders assume that the investors know the language of the industry and your industry that you're pitching to. They do not understand that. So you need to speak extremely clearly. You need to break it down into numbers. All they want to know is acquisition, revenue size, financial forecasts, and that you've got a good team that knows what they're doing. So team is the most important thing. They barely look at the idea, to be honest. They only really look at what is the team. Do they know what they're doing? Do the numbers prove that they're doing it well? And, you know, what can we see in the future as growth? That's what I think is probably the key. I don't know, Mani, what you think, but.
Yeah, I agree with you. The number one thing that don't send us your business plan. We're not interested. We're not interested.
Yeah.
Initially, send us. We want to know who your team is. We want to know who you are. We're interested in the founder, and quite frankly, usually two founders, not just one. It tends to get funded more than a singular founder. Would you back that, Mez? I find.
Yeah, it's very rare to. It's very rare to fund a single founder, let alone a female single founder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, if you are just one, think about who you can team up with that brings meat to your team, like brings a really good resume and can really add to the team, because that's what the founder's looking for. And we're looking for whether we can get along with you, whether we believe in you, whether we think you've got what it takes, whether you have the grit that it takes, because we're giving you money. We need to know you're going to work your ass off for it. We also sometimes look for, if you've put your own money into the business, and because you believe in it, if you're pulling some fat salary out of it and the rest of it, we're generally like, okay, well, you're milking the business dry. Is this coming for the, so there's a little sidebar. We want to know if you've invested in your own idea, how much and what did you do with it? So your team, your investor. Now, also investors will often invest in industries they're familiar with, because they know that's where they can give the best value, because they want. And then you have to decide, which is really important when you're inviting, and don't just take anybody's money. You need to decide if you get on with that, if you think you can get on with that, if you respect that investor, if you can work well together, or are they hands-on or hands-off? If they're a hands-off investor, great. You just have to do your reports, yada, yada, yada. Or are they investor? A lot of angel investors too, there's VC and angel, want to come in and really help you to, with their networks and their connections and the rest of it, to skyrocket your business. So if you are going sort of the angel investor route, you should be looking at who do they know, you know, who can they bring in to help me? What do they know? Where's their field of expertise? Will they be a benefit to my business? Not just in their investment, but also in their knowledge and what they can bring to the table. The payoff, you've already said that, Mez. I think everybody knows. Investors, we're not looking to give handouts. That's what we do for charity. We're looking to see, and, you know, there's obviously a lot of companies we back that don't deliver. So we've worked out, you know, the percentages around, you know, how many are going to fail and how many are going to succeed. And we like to obviously pick more that succeed, but we don't always do that well. But yeah, so we want to know the financial potential of your business. And as Mel said, just have really solid figures and forecasts and understanding the market size. So the last I would say is market size, proven traction. So really big proven traction and market size. How big can you take this? And yeah, is it going to be viable? So is there viable growth?
Yeah. And to Marnie's point, you know, the co-founder status and the team choice that you bring in shows that you know what you don't know, right? If I'm not good at numbers, I'm going to bring someone who's a CFO who's good at numbers in, and I'm going to be the product person, and I'm going to show that we're a unified team and we cover all bases. And I think I definitely look at that. You know, I look at someone who, are they able to assess their own pitfalls, and are they able to see a macro vision for the product and the pathway that we see? If we don't align with that, then I don't feel like it would be a worthy investment from my part.
Yeah, I think investors, we expect investors to be the big picture thinker, the visionaries, okay? And then we expect that visionary to build the technical underneath that can bring their vision to life. We don't expect you to be the tech and the marketing and the this.
Yeah.
In fact, you get a bit nervous when you are trying to do it all.
I'm just going to I'm going to ask you this question, Marnie. Somebody anonymously has asked, can you discuss the balancing act for entrepreneurs who are building a business as a side endeavor while still working a 9-to-5 job? How to build relationships or find mentors within the confinement of, you know, the 9-to-5 job?
Okay. Okay. You want me to answer that?
You can go, or I mean, I have a few ideas about this, and it's quite a
I feel like I've been talking too much, so you go.
No. So, I mean, I was going to say also, you know, things, communities like the Assembly and Fempire, they actually help with this, because you end up finding mentors and they're kind of tailored to you by the communities. And then you can build relationships in a way that's digital around it. But the balancing act is, I mean, I've been there before. It is quite a hustle during that time. You know, obviously you do, I've been in situations where I've gotten up at 4 a.m. basically 4 a.m. I'm working before I go to work, doing the day job. And then I've got 2 kids now, so I kind of do that anyway, because I'm doing it around that. But the balancing act is tough. But what you want to do for me is to get to a point where you have the financial security to make that jump. And it's not always going to feel safest if you've never done it before. I have a lot of people that I've worked with who have been corporate their whole lives. They're trying to start a side hustle and they're not used to the ambiguity that comes with entrepreneurship. So my advice would be to join communities of fellow entrepreneurs, so you can start to feel the energy of being an entrepreneur. You start to feel the understanding of being comfortable in ambiguity, and then finding mentors and building relationships. You can do it manually through networking and through LinkedIn, like reaching out to the people that you research. But you can also join communities where those mentors are kind of assigned to you in matches, etc.
I would add to that you've got to be incredible at time management. So if you do want to connect with investors and like-minded people and want to have a sidebar or mentoring from them, you're going to have to be diligent about taking your lunch hour and then meeting them in your lunch hour and explaining to them you only have between 12 and 1 to meet, and would that be okay? And most people are pretty generous like that and they'll work it out. Or do they mind meeting you after work hours? And listen, if you have to sit in your car on your phone in a park and talk to someone who is, you know, can give you some great advice, then that's what you're doing. And just be completely open and vulnerable and let them know. And if they don't understand, you don't really want them mentoring you, and they don't get what it's like being a working mum who has to balance everything, and also, or a working woman. You don't have to be a mother to be incredibly busy, who's also trying to get her side hustle. I just want to be really, really blunt and just say there is no such thing as balance when you're trying to raise a family and your business and do your side business, and there's no such thing. All there is you've just got to draw on that fiery passion, that kind of that never give up, and really understand why are you doing it, what is the purpose of even doing that side hustle. If it's this massive passion of yours, draw on that, and just keep going, but also schedule some downtime to get that sleep that you need, so that you
self-care.
That's right.
So you can keep going.
Yeah, we call self-care, at least I did. Self-care for me was just sleep. Forget all the other pampering stuff, just sleep. So you schedule that. And if you have a partner, you get him or her on board, or them on board to back you up. Because Janine Ellis of Boost Juice, myself, Mez, I'm sure you would agree with this, to get where we got, we married well. Now that sounds very anti-feminist, but it's not. We married well. We married people who had our back, who took the kids, who balanced the work demands. So sometimes you need to sit down and have that come to Jesus conversation with your partner and say, this is what I want, this is what I'm passionate about. Do a pitch deck to them. I don't care what it takes, but be like, you know, I can bring this company to what I believe is going to be incredible for our family, but I need your help. So an understanding partner is also, I mean, it might not be open to you. I hope it is. It's not always open to a lot of women. So they're just a few things. And then don't give up the eat right and get to the gym, or move. Forget getting to the gym.
I was going to say that. No, I was going to say eat healthy, sleep, and surround yourself with the right people, right? It's because you have to think you are $1 million racehorse. You need everything to support you going really hard at making this vision possible and knowing that life works in seasons, right? So the people that you surround yourself with are going to make a phenomenal difference to whether your idea is an easy one to do or not easy to do, right? Like going from a 9 to 5 to a side hustle. If you're working a 9 to 5 and you're doing this kind of entrepreneurial endeavor, but you don't know any entrepreneurs, that's going to be really difficult to maintain as a sustainable lifestyle, to have the support, the energy, the community, you know, whether it's from your partner like Marnie and I, or whether it's, you know, from a broader community. It is really difficult to do in isolation. It doesn't even have to be a physical community. It can be a digital community. It just can be a free Facebook community, whatever. It can be Instagram accounts, like whatever, but something that you start to see, you know, a mirror of what the journey is. So you have that inspiration to keep going. You know, there's two different types of, I guess, fuels for discipline. There's the push, which is the pain, and there's the pull, which is the inspiration. And I prefer, obviously, the inspiration. So try to surround yourself with that inspiration. It will be much easier to do the 9 to 5 and the side hustle.
And finally, sort of on a side note, is get ruthless with cutting away people that pull you back and hold you down, and mute family members that don't support you. Just don't tell them what you're doing. They don't need to know, including your husband if he's not supportive. Just mute them, and then prove when you've proven it. A bit like when you're going for that investment, you've already proven concept, and then you can let them know. I wrote an entire book and didn't tell anyone in my family. My mum was a journalist. I didn't want anything to put me off writing this book, it wasn't until it was a #1 bestseller that I actually said to my family, and luckily it was about a month after it launched that it went #1. And then I told my family that I'd written a book and published, and it was out there published. So, and it wasn't because my family's not supportive. It was just, I just knew any derogatory comment or anything like that would be detrimental to.
Yeah.
So mute the people that don't support you, move them through, or mute them.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's sage advice. I agree with that. And my parents still don't know what I do. So who knows? They're like, you created an augmented reality. I don't know what that is. It's too complex. So we're about to wrap up, but is there anything, Marnie, you want to leave the audience with? Is there any resources that we can share, or
so if you're new to the investor landscape, Fempire has a training. It's $49. I'll put the link in here. You can buy it. It goes through everything that I spoke about, from self-funding to crowdfunding, how to do it, how to get a bank loan, how to get in VC investors, in angel investors, all of it, what to look for, everything and more that we've covered. I'll put it in there. Click on the link now and then explore it. If it floats your boat, jump on it, and then it has a great bump into our academy, which is a backdoor. We don't invite our coaches, bring their clients in, but if you want to get inside our academy, it does it has lots of training for entrepreneurs to get your business up and out there, the steps that you need to take to get that business robust enough to gain those investors.
Lindsay, do we have time for one more Q&A? I've just seen one come through, and I know we're just close to time. Awesome. So by the way, I've just put also the assembly.community in there. That's just our sort of community that we've created. It's, you know, founders, VP level and C-suite and everything. But let's get to the questions, because this is important. When approaching an investor, is it appropriate to tug on their heartstrings, or is it all about ROI? For example, if a business serves an underserved or underprivileged customer, I have had experience with this, and unfortunately, I do think it leans towards ROI. I think there are funders, like funds, that would resonate with that. But the problem with that is statistically, say you go to a fund that's a female fund for female startups, if you raise money from them, the chances of raising a second round drastically reduce, because it's not a charity, it's a business. So you have to show the investor that it's growing. I don't know if money's different, but I do think it leans towards an ROI.
Every now and then, if you've built a relationship, someone will lend you money or give you money knowing that there isn't going to be an ROI, you know. So sometimes you can. Every now and then you'll get lucky. What I would say is go for grants. Definitely. Yes. We've got to mention grants. I've also unpacked in the course there. So go for grants to get if it's a more heart-based business, you might be able to get grants there. And there's lots of more and more female focused grants that you could take advantage of. And again, crowdfunding. If there's a behind it, crowdfunding, learn how to do it properly and go crowdfund your business. And then if there's enough ROI, you can bring an investor in with heartstrings and a return on investment.
Yeah, and you can find high net worth individuals and seed funds that are specifically geared towards certain, say, climate or any sort of underserviced area that you might want to go into. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I would just investigate anyone who's in the space funding it.
And also there's a lot of female-focused investment companies out there too. So go to those. They are looking for female-driven companies looking for investors. You'll find tech is the most popular. Just quickly, girls, tech's the most popular. Medical. What do you find in your industry? I find that tech investing is the most rampant.
Oh yes, it's definitely tech. It's by far.
Tech focused, you're ahead.
Yeah, tech is definitely winning.
Products are harder because they're much harder to get to market fast, whereas tech's real easy to get to market fast. So just know the road that you're traveling on. But ask us more questions on LinkedIn if you have.
Yes.
I think that's a wrap. We've gone
over, but thank you so much for everyone who sent in questions. And like Marnie said, you can find us on LinkedIn. We're happy to answer anything else that you might have come to mind. And thank you for joining us for this awesome fireside chat. And I think that's a wrap for us.
It's been really lovely hanging out with all of you, and good luck.
Yes, good luck. We've got this. All right. Yes, we got it. All right. See you, everyone.